So 3 documents most people have problems with when applying for any type of Czech visa or Czech residence permit. We have worked with about 9,000 clients in the last 10 years, and there are some documents which are always problematic to get or are always problematic to get them right. Number 1 is proof of accommodation. Number 2 is proof of income. And number 3 are documents issued outside of the Czech Republic. So I will go through these 3 documents, and I will always explain how to prevent having any trouble when using these documents for the Czech Republic visa application or long-term residence permit application or even permanent residence permit application. Because those 3 documents are one of the most important ones. And if you have even the smallest mistake, they can cost you the visa residence permit. So let's go through them one by one now. So proof of accommodation, how to not mess it up. So maybe the first thing would be to say would be that there are many things that can go wrong with the proof of accommodation. I'll go through them in a second, but maybe let's start with what is considered a proof of accommodation. Proof of accommodation generally can be either your lease agreement or a special form called proof of accommodation form. Basically, it's a document proving that you have somewhere to live in the Czech Republic. As mentioned, there are many things that can go wrong. For example, the flat doesn't have to be listed as a flat in the land register. It's difficult for you to find out if you don't speak Czech, if you don't know the websites where to check it. But what can happen is that, for example, when people are reconstructing some space in the house, they reconstruct it in the form. Usually, it's either attic, the space under the roof, or cellars. What often happens is, and especially this was happening before COVID, because there was a huge demand for apartments and lack of apartments for that demand. So many people were actually changing cellars, and they were like reconstructing them and making apartments out of those cellars. The same with the attic under the roof. So many people just built new apartments in those spaces. But what often happens is that flats built in those spaces, like a cellar space or the attic space, they don't meet some specific requirements of the law. So they can never be officially marked as apartments. They look as apartments. You have everything there, kitchen, you have like shower. It looks like a normal apartment, but because it doesn't meet some requirements of the law, it can never be marked as an official apartment. So if you move into such apartment and you want to use it for some official purposes, it will not be possible because officially it's not an apartment. It's not space for living. So you need to be very careful about that. That's just one thing, that the flat doesn't actually need to be a flat. So that's important to check. Second thing is that the person you sign the lease with, or who gives you the proof of accommodation form, doesn't necessarily need to be the owner of the place. Because what often happens is that someone is renting the space and then they're just subletting it to you, or that someone is just taking care of the apartment, either a private person or some company. So they have an agreement with the landlord saying that they will be taking care of the apartment. Or it can be also scam, or there can be many other reasons why. But you need to have either signature of the owner of the property on your lease agreement or the proof of accommodation, or you need to connect the owner with whoever signed the lease or the proof of accommodation. So if it's not, let's say the lease agreement is not signed by the owner of the flat or the property, you need to provide either a power of attorney from the landlord to someone who signed the lease or the proof of accommodation, or you need to provide a notarized copy of their own lease agreement, for example, if it's sublet. So you always need to connect the actual owner to the person who signed whatever documents you're using as a proof of accommodation. And that sometimes can be also very difficult. So be careful about that, about the ownership of the place. And another thing, which is very specific for the Czech Republic, many people don't understand it. And unfortunately, it's also very common in the Czech Republic, is something called Druzstvo. It can be translated as a housing cooperative. That's probably the closest term. And what it means is that the flats in the building are not owned individually by like private people, but they're owned by a housing cooperative. And even though the separate owners, the individual owners, are kind of like owners, and they can find tenants to their apartments, officially in the land register, they're not the owners. The owner of all the apartments is the housing cooperative. So what often happens is that the individual person who kind of, let's say, owns the apartment signs the lease agreement with you or gives you the proof of accommodation, but he's officially not the owner, because the owner is the housing cooperative. So this doesn't work, and you need to be careful about that, because this is actually a pretty common thing in the Czech Republic, this kind of ownership. And what you need to get is to get a separate consent on top of the lease you have with the person. You need to have a separate consent of the housing cooperative, that they agree with the landlord subletting the apartment to you, or directly agree with you using the apartment. And that can be often very complicated to get, because it needs to be signed usually by the director of the Druzstvo, of the housing cooperative, plus one more member of the board. And that's very difficult often to get them sign something. Sometimes they even need to agree on accepting a new tenant on a special like meeting, which is called like once in 3 months. So there are many things that can go wrong when you're submitting your proof of accommodation. So be careful and make sure that someone checks the documents before you want to use them for any official purposes. We also have an article about this and how to check everything on our Move to Prague website. So I'll be sharing the link in the description or in the comments below. So check that out. Or of course, if you need any help, if you're not sure, get in touch. We'll be happy to help you, because it's better to have someone check it before you sign any lease and pay the deposit and everything, than to sign it, pay everything, and then find out that you cannot use the lease for any official purposes because your apartment is not officially an apartment, for example. Yeah, so that was proof of accommodation. Let's jump to the next topic now, and that's how to not to mess up proof of income in the Czech Republic for your visa application or residence permit application. This is actually another, this is the document when most people make the most mistakes. And how it happens is that they use an accountant to do their taxes or to deal with their incomes, an accountant who is not experienced in dealing with foreigners. This is especially very super important for people who are staying in the Czech Republic under the purpose of business. So all freelancers, English teachers, software developers, or anyone owning a company, this is the crucial part, and it's very easy to make some mistakes. And we actually, if we have an accountant we work with, I'll be happy to share his contact. And people who don't do taxes with him, I would say 80% of our clients have their taxes done incorrectly. I'll explain why, but you need to be careful. Even companies who pretend to do taxes for expats often have no clue what you need to do with your tax return to meet the immigration requirements. So be careful about that as well. So if you're a freelancer in the Czech Republic, you need your tax return for extension of your visa or residence permit, be very, very careful, and ideally get in touch with us. So how much do you need to be making? Let's now not talk about the visa where you just need to show how much money you have in your bank account. That's simple, and as long as you have enough money in your bank account, it shows that the bank account belongs to you, and as long as you have some debit card linked to that account, which proves that you can use the money in the Czech Republic, there is nothing too complicated about that. Let's now focus on getting a residence permit, extending a residence permit, long-term one, or even permanent residence permit. Because for that, you need to prove that you have high enough monthly income. High enough, what it means? It means that you need to prove that you've been making enough on monthly basis to cover the requirements for the whole family. So if you live on your own, of course you'll be just covering the cost of like for you. But if you live with a partner, then you need to be making enough for both of you. If you live with a family, you need to be making enough for the whole family. How much is enough? There is a special calculation which consists from two things. First, that's something called livable minimum. That's like a theoretical amount given by the government, saying that this is the amount of money you need to survive for a month in the Czech Republic. The number is pretty low. Like, to give you an idea, it's approximately 3,500 per single person. If there are more people in family or in your household, you need to add up some more. But let's say 3,500 per person per month. Then the other part is housing costs. So kind of getting back to the proof of accommodation, to the first document I talked about, you have two options. If you show your lease agreement to the Ministry of the Interior, they will calculate with your real rent. So let's say your rent is 15,000 crowns. So if you use your proof of as your proof of accommodation, you use your lease agreement, the ministry will be calculating with 15,000 crowns as your accommodation costs. If you don't show them your real rent and you, for example, just use the proof of accommodation form, which doesn't state the amount of rent you're paying, then the ministry will be calculating with some general amount, which is again given by some law. For one person, as of now, it's slightly below 9,000 crowns. It's like 8,800 something. So if your rent is higher than this number, it's better for you to use the proof of accommodation form instead of your lease agreement, because if you use your lease agreement, you will need to be proven higher income. So basically, the amount you need to be making on monthly basis for a long-term residence permit or for permanent residence permit is a combination, or like it's a sum of livable minimum, depending on how many people live in the household, and your accommodation cost, either some general amount or your real rent if you show the ministry your real lease agreement. So, and now how to prove it? That's the tough part. Again, we will kind of not talk, or I'll not talk about employees, because it's kind of easy. As long as you get your salary, it meets the minimum requirement of the minimum salary of the Czech Republic, and you get your salary slips and you have employment contract, all this, it's kind of easy to prove your income as an employee. But again, the tricky part comes if you're a self-employed person, because in that case, you have two ways how to prove your income. Number one, again, we'll not talk about that because it's slightly different. So just briefly, number one way to prove your income would be showing all your invoices, all your receipts, all your bank statement showing your incomes from your business, and so-called table of income where you list all your incomes during the period of time you've been running business. But this only works if it's your first year and you haven't done your first tax return yet. So that's usually if you get your first visa and then you're applying for the first residence permit. So you can use this. But in most cases, the proof of income is based on your tax return. So if you're a freelancer and you're freelancing in the Czech Republic, you need to do your tax return before the end of March of this year for the previous year. So, for example, you will be paying taxes for 2021 before the end of March 2022. And then if you have done this already when you're applying for your residence permit or extension or permanent residence permit, then the ministry will be basing their decision on your tax return. So you need to be sure that your tax return has been done properly, correctly, and that it will be showing enough money. The most common mistake there is that your accountant does your taxes the way as they would do it for Czech clients or Czech citizens, which means usually that they deduct 60% of your income as your expenses, and then you only pay taxes from the remaining 40%, which is great for like your tax optimization, because you usually don't have to pay any taxes at all, or you pay very low amount unless your income is very high. On the other hand, for the Ministry of the Interior, your official income will only be the 40%. So let's say if you need to be making 3,500 plus 9,000, so 12,500 crowns. So that's 12.5 to 120. So let's say you need to be making 140,000 crowns a year, but that in this case would need to be only 30% of your income. So your real income would need to be like at least double, more than double. So if you do taxes this way, very likely you will not meet the minimum requirement given by the law and needed for your residence permit extension or like permanent residence permit. So you need to be very, very careful about that, and you need to make sure that whoever does your taxes does them properly and the way that you meet all the requirements. If you have any questions about that, get in touch with me. I'll be happy to explain. I'll be happy to share the exact calculation. I'll be happy to share the contact to our accountant. And I will be also sharing a link to an article where we describe this in details and where you can calculate everything. But this is super important, and it's kind of difficult to change it if you do the taxes incorrectly once. So be very careful when you're doing your taxes if you need them for your residence permit in the Czech Republic. And now the last topic is how to legalize documents issued outside of the Czech Republic for the use in the Czech Republic. What it means is that you, for example, you got married in, I don't know, India, and you need to prove that you are married. So you will be using the Indian marriage certificate for your application in the Czech Republic. And of course, that has some rules. That has some guidelines you need to follow, and those rules are different for different countries. So in general, because slow down. If you want to use a document issued outside of the Czech Republic in the Czech Republic for some official purposes, the Czech government generally doesn't have any way of checking if the document is real. Because if you got your marriage certificate in India, for example, an officer in Prague 4 cannot know if like whatever you brought them is real or not, or if you just printed it at home and this is not how an official marriage certificate from India should look like. So there is some internationally recognized legalization of documents which guarantees that if you get this legalization, that the document is real and that you can use it internationally. And there are three types of documents issued outside of the Czech Republic. So first, the easiest thing is if the Czech Republic has an agreement with that country about recognition of each other's documents. That means that for example, we have this agreement with Russia, Ukraine, Vietnam, I believe, and like 20 more countries probably. And what it means is that if you get some document, some official document in Russia, for example, I don't know, birth certificate in Russia, that you can use it in the Czech Republic without any need of any additional legalization. Of course, you need to translate it into Czech, but the actual document doesn't have to be legalized or notarized or anything like that. You can use it as is. But it's only valid for like 25 countries approximately. Most other countries sign so-called Hague Convention, Hague, whatever, which means that they are using so-called apostille. Apostille means a special kind of a sticker. Sometimes in the US, for example, it's an additional document attached to the original document, which says that we confirm that this document is a genuine document of this country and you can use it internationally. The apostille is issued in every country. There are special apostille authorities which are allowed to check the document and attach the apostille if the document is real. So for example, if you're from the US and you have India, the same actually, if you get a marriage certificate from one of those countries and you want to use it in the Czech Republic, you need to take the original marriage certificate to the special apostille authority. They will check in some databases if it's a real, genuine document, and if it is, then they will attach either a sticker on the original document, or they will staple an additional like page called apostille, and this is the legalization you need to use the document in the Czech Republic. I can see that there is a question, so I will get to the question at the end of the video. So that's the easier way, the apostille. But not all the countries in the world has signed this convention. Most of them did. So for most countries, it's the apostille. But for some countries, for example, including Canada, there is something even more complicated than the apostille, and that's so-called superlegalization. Superlegalization means, again, it's a way of legalizing foreign documents for use in the Czech Republic or internationally in general. But it's a step more complicated than the apostille. So how to get a superlegalization is that you need to get the original document from the country which issued the document. So let's say Indian marriage certificate. Then you need to take this original document to some authority in that country, so let's say in India, and that authority will give you a special stamp saying we confirm that this is a genuine Indian marriage certificate. And then you need to take the original document with this stamp from the Indian authority to a Czech embassy in that country, so say in India, and the Czech embassy will verify that the verification of the document is correct. And only once you go through these two steps, so original document stamped by some authority in that country, and then Czech embassy in that country stamping that the stamp is correct, only then you can use the certificate or the document in the Czech Republic. So this is, sometimes it gets pretty complicated. And for example, in the US, the system is often works the way that the notary or whoever issues the apostille, they will not put the apostille on the original document because they don't want to destroy it or whatever. So they will first make a notarized copy and then they attach the apostille to the notarized copy. It looks okay in theory, but it's not, because the apostille only verifies the last stamp. And the last stamp in this case is a stamp of the notary saying that they made a copy of the document. So actually the apostille would not, in this case, they would not verify the original document, but only the stamp of the notary. So basically the apostille would be saying that the notary is a real notary in the US and he's allowed to make copies. But it doesn't say that the original document from which the copy was made was genuine and original. So this can get also pretty complicated, and it's better to have someone to check it and help you with that, because sometimes it's easy, but sometimes it gets complicated and depending on the country. So it's better to be safe than sorry. Okay, so that's it. It was way longer than I thought. I just love talking. So let's see the question now. Sladana, nice to see you, Sladana. And could you write an article or make a video about paušální daň? What is it and what is it for? Okay, so let's. Okay, I'll do it. I'll explain now because I promised that I will do it, and then I will probably write something about that or shoot another separate video. But for you, Sladana, what is paušální daň and how to deal with it? Basically, paušální daň, that means like a flat tax rate. It's a new thing introduced in the beginning of 2021, and it's supposed to make life easier for freelancers in the Czech Republic. What it means is, now if you're a freelancer in the Czech Republic, you need to pay 3 separate things. First is income tax. You pay it once a year. Then you pay social security. You pay that on monthly basis. And third thing you need to pay is a healthcare. So you pay those 3 things to different authorities using different bank accounts, using different variable symbols, different amounts. And then you need to get reports from all of them when the tax season comes. And it's not really complicated, but it can get pretty messy, and you need to do plenty of things. The paušální daň, the flat tax rate, simplifies this, and simplifies it in the way that you only pay one payment on monthly basis. You only pay it to the tax authority, to the tax office, and they split it with the rest. So with the social security, with the healthcare, and they keep something. So you basically pay only one payment on monthly basis to the tax office, and you don't need to pay the social security, healthcare, anything. They will deal with it themselves. So on one hand, it's easier to deal with taxes this way. On the other hand, we'll see how the ministry will see this and how you will be able to prove your income if you do it this way, because that will be something new for the ministry. and it will definitely take some time for them to adjust and to see how the tax return should be done, and if you can even prove high enough income. So in general, now we don't recommend our clients to use the flat tax rate, because we don't know how the ministry will react on that, and if they will accept it or how they will accept it. So as of now, if you need to prove your income for your visa or residence permit application, we don't recommend using the flat tax rate, but some clients did it anyway, so we'll see. Next year, when the tax season comes, we'll start seeing if the ministry accepts proofs like this and if it works out. So hopefully this was good enough for you, Sladana, for now. As mentioned, I might shoot another video about that or write an article, so I will definitely let you know. And hopefully this was good. Guys, if you have some more questions, now is the time to ask them. I'll answer them. If not, then I'll finish the stream and we'll go home. So I'll give you maybe like 10-15 more seconds. If you have any questions, please write them down and I'll answer them directly. If not, then in like 10 more seconds, I will just finish the stream. So meanwhile, I'll dance for you here. Okay, I can see that my dancing made most of the people leave, so that's cool. All right, yeah, it doesn't seem that there will be any more questions, so I hope this was helpful. Please follow me here on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, everywhere, on Facebook, LinkedIn, I'm everywhere. So please follow me, share this if you found it useful, and support me with some likes, comments, and everything. It really helps a lot, because it's a proof that what I'm doing is useful and that I'm giving you some value. So if you appreciate it, please share, comment, like, everything helps. Thank you very much, guys. Bye-bye.